2001 here on the Pro Wrestling Review. I'm Brian Krasman from the Daily News.
I'm Renee Detour from the Tribune Review.
And joining us as always to join in the fun is Jim Bruzzo here to our left and to our right. That's Tom Combetti. Excuse me. Anyway, I say Elevation 2001 for a reason because internet fans everywhere, if you heard this big pressure valve released last night, that was
keyboards were broken all over the land.
That's because Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit have finally found their way to the main event level of the World Wrestling Federation, at least for this week. Well, and I think for the time being, but we'll get into that just in a few seconds. But we got a clip getting ready to go here for the tag team titles. It was Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho against Steve Austin and Triple H in a 15-minute classic, which is one of the finer television matches you're ever going to find. And once we do get ready here, we're going to go to this clip of the match.
Pull back. One thing, after I watched the match, I said probably was the best Raw main event, definitely this year, if not of all time. But one of the things that you need to talk about when you see this match is the
offense.
Right.
Jericho and Benoit were booked to be equals in this match. It wasn't, although it was an upset just because of their status, it wasn't an upset physically. It was both. All four guys held their own through the whole match. Benoit and Austin had an exchange toward the beginning of the match where Austin initiated the chops. Threw him into the corner, hit him with a couple chops
which is not a smart thing to do.
Yeah, but I think that was kind of in the way. So he was doing it so that Benoit could do part of his offense that he's known for.
Just to tie into that real quick, put over their offense, individual moves. You can look at it this way: Jericho did get the pin seconds after he hit the line, so.
Right. Well, yeah. But
technically, it would have been easier just for Austin hold him and Triple H hit him. They could have said something like, "Well, let me hit Austin without the move."
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess now preliminary reports are saying that Jericho and Austin are going to highlight King of the Ring for the WWF title.
Well, apparently that's set in stone. There was a report that I saw right before we taped this that they told Undertaker last night he's out of the main event picture, and that they're going to go with Jericho and Austin. And you got to kind of feel for Undertaker here because he hasn't done anything wrong.
No,
he worked hard at the pay-per-view.
Right.
It's just time for change.
Yeah. Everything you said was right. He did work hard, but got to do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's a shame no other heels have really been elevated with the exception of Steve Regal, William Regal, Kurt Angle.
They call him Steve anyway, so what's the matter?
For the Undertaker to feud with. Possibly we could see an Albert-Undertaker feud. Not that that's going to do anything for anybody, but at least it gives him something to do.
It would elevate Albert.
Yeah, and possibly hurt the Undertaker physically. But have the Undertaker take some time off. My God, nobody has to be in a program all the time.
In a main event. He's due for some time off. It's been over 4 months.
Let's not bring up Sting's name because he is the king of that. My shoelace was untied. I gotta go home. Sorry.
That's a 3-month span for him, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think Kamala's doing anything.
Well, he's eating.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Yeah, there's spots for Undertaker. Actually, Albert, I think Albert's a good idea. Because there's a lot of talk that they want to start pushing him as a monster big guy. And I don't think there's anybody worse, to put in a ring. I'm sorry. There's somebody better. Man, I'm on a roll. Better for them to put him in the ring within the Undertaker because he's, they're similar size, similar capabilities, things like that. So I think it's a great guy for him to learn from and lose too. Undertaker's got to win that feud, but.
Well, the Undertaker is the king of putting over the worthless big men. Not that Albert falls into that category, but you have your Kamalas, your Giant Gonzaleses for all the people that remember that.
Why was that name brought up? Did it have to be?
I had to because you know what? I missed the hair on the shoulders with the bodysuit.
I missed the ether he had in that little pocket behind that little sack of hair on his rear end.
I thought that was his wallet. No, never mind. We'll get into that during the break, but I guess we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about Raw, so stay with us. Fans out there to think that this show doesn't try to be educational because, we make our valiant efforts, but this is a little segment we like to call Why You Shouldn't Shoot on Jobbers Because the Acolytes Are Watching segment.
Yeah.
So if we can fit that on the screen at the bottom. But no, actually, if you saw the beginning part of Raw, Perry Saturn and Dean Malenko fought the Acolytes in what was just supposed to be, I guess, a regular Raw match, but it actually turned into something a little more vile, if you will.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know the backstory, because we're all about backstory, a couple weeks ago during a metal match, Perry Saturn fought Mike Bell, who's just basically enhancement talent, and that's just guys they fly in.
So he was on the ECW's last pay-per-view, right?
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Well, anyway. But they do this all the time. They'll bring guys in, because of course most of you kids didn't grow up in the 80s like we did. They bring in guys who aren't names, who just come in and just do jobs to guys like Saturn and Val Venus on shows just to kind of give them some airtime. Well, apparently he screwed up, what was it, hip toss or something like that?
Yeah.
And so basically Perry Saturn shot all over him. And beat the
Let's
kid
clarify
pretty
that for
That
people that
means
might not know.
hitting hard.
Yeah.
Like started punching them for real, sort of.
Apparently speared him into the steps.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well,
That's
but,
how I say hello to some people,
Well, the WWF frowns on these types of activities, and apparently Saturn did apologize to Bell, but that wasn't enough. So we set up this clip right here of Perry Saturn's televised punishment, and that's legitimate. This really was.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that the Acolytes are Vince McMahon's boys when it comes to showing the talent who, I guess, don't cooperate. Just how things are going to be if that kind of behavior keeps up. So
Yeah.
we saw it a few years ago with Public Enemy, who have since vanished off the face of the earth. So.
Yeah, if you did see Saturn later in the evening, they did a segment where they were checking to see if he had a concussion, and he just mouthed the words, "You're welcome," and that was, I guess just sort of his way of, knowing that he had been punished and he was okay with it.
Saying, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again.
What kind of business is this? You screw up at work, you get written up, or you might get, reprimanded or yelled at. I can just see.
They should do more of this at jobs like, at desk jobs.
I can see like a copy editing error, and all of a sudden my boss calls in the Acolytes. You're just gonna die.
Well, I guess WCW's version to this, back when they, still had a company, was Rick Steiner apparently with Lash LaRue the one time. WCW
Well, I
management.
think he may have gone into.
Well, they gave his reward for beating the hell out of Lash LaRue. They gave Rick Steiner the U.S. title. But apparently, as the story goes, it's probably developed into a legend by now. WCW called Lash LaRue, "You need to lose 20 pounds." "No, I don't." So they put him in a match with Rick Steiner, and Steiner proceeds to beat the teeth out of his mouth. And Rick Steiner's held in high regard, given a WCW buddy and a.
That's not a big deal, though, Tom. I'm pretty sure you can beat the crap out of Lash LaRue.
It was just funny to watch because it was on Thunder. Just to hear Mike Tenay cover up for it. Ooh, that looked kind of. Ow.
Well, it was great because the first move of the match was Rick Steiner punching him in the face.
Right? It was also right in the middle of Lash LaRue's signature little move that he does there.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's like his hand didn't even get to this point. He's laying on the ground.
But good news for Lash LaRue, he still kept the fake Louisiana accent throughout the match to Rick Steiner when calling spots.
Which is
I gave
difficult.
away another secret.
I'll take it back. The best part of the whole match was when I think Rick Steiner threw him back in the ring. Lash is down on the mat. Rick Steiner's just kneeing him repeatedly. Classic stuff.
That's real
It
blood.
doesn't happen often, but when it does, Pro Wrestling Review is there, hopefully, with the TV, with the VCR, with the record button on pause, but we do try to get it, so there you go. You're welcome.
Actually, follow this up at this point real quick. The most famous of all this was, I think, was at WrestleMania. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh,
Barbarian and Tito Santana.
yeah.
Oh, a day of
Some of you other
infamy.
fans go, I forget which WrestleMania.
I think it was 5 or 6.
WrestleMania 6.
Yeah, I think
WrestleMania.
it was 6. Yeah,
Barbarian.
Tito got his head taken off.
Yeah, that was ugly. And that was
and
one.
then got the Matador gimmick.
Can we promise that clip next week?
Yeah,
what-
sure, I could find it.
We have it
There's a
somewhere.
promise from us. You thought Sid Vicious was bad.
Yeah, I'll show that.
This one's not.
Well,
as
I
bad,
think
but
it broke
it's-
Tito's nose.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it
It,
did.
it was one move. I think it was the only move of the match. Barbarian was stiff on him, but
No.
Well, what was the backstory with Tito? I mean, was he mad because his figure
just-
wasn't selling, or
I
what?
think he turned down the El Matador gimmick.
From
Oh.
from what I understand, I don't think him and Vince ever really saw eye to eye on a lot of things.
That must be those comments from Jesse Ventura about the
Someone should
MLF, the
tell-
Mexican
yeah.
Football League,
Yeah.
and Tijuana,
Someone should
Mexico.
tell Tito that you're not supposed to keep the Intercontinental title for 8 years. So I think that might have been one of the snagging points.
Of course, he did get swerved out of it. Savage hit him with that gum band on that Superstars taping and won that IC title many moons ago.
Thought that was a weird cut.
We should bring up, though, before this segment's over,
The
that
hell
Triple
is-
H sustained a serious knee injury during the match we showed you last segment. Apparently, he was going to break up a pin attempt and tore his knee. I believe it was he tore a tendon in his knee, and I believe it was pretty well torn through. So he's expected to be out for the next 3 months. So that really throws a wrench into plans, because I'm pretty sure the plan was for Triple H Benoit to feud.
Damn it.
Yeah, so that would have been a great feud, but you got to move someone else up for Benoit to fight. I don't know. I think Regal is the perfect candidate right here.
I gotta go with Undertaker. I'm sorry.
Oh, what the hell?
Hey, K-Quick needs something to do besides rapping.
But he's not a strong heel. Come on now.
Well, yes, he is.
Is he
Ask him. He'll
Memphis?
tell you. He's a strong heel.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just really it is a shame. I mean, it's kind of good in a way because they did get the belt off of Triple H the night before, which we'll get into
Yeah.
next couple segments. So at least
But
they did that.
the one point is
tournament.
too, if Triple H does choose to stay off of television, this will add a lot to his character. It'll give him, him and Stephanie have been on TV now for, how many months without Triple H being hurt. But
Right.
this is ultimately will be a good thing because he'll come back and he'll be fresh, just like The Rock.
Right.
And of course, there's always a generic ratings boost in 90 returns
Yeah.
for no reason other than the fact that he's returning.
You bring up The Rock. I have to get this point out before we go to commercial here.
I knew I did something.
I was looking through posters today up at Walmart, and they have a Mummy Returns poster. There's 3 pictures of The Rock on the poster. He was in the movie for 15 seconds. They have posters for the guy. I'm happy I bought it.
Well, on that, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the pay-per-view from last Sunday, Judgment Day.
Running this week, and we're going to take a look back at Judgment Day. I know amongst the 4 of us we were pretty hard and critical about it last week going in, but did it live up to expectations? Disappoint?
When expectations are low to begin with, what they delivered I think was solid, with the exception of maybe
Let's see,
the free
problem is-
gift that they didn't
mean, you can't-
advertise.
Yeah, I want my 3 free months from this.
I was just going to make the point. Was it a solid show because your expectations were low, or is it one of those shows that actually, it was a solid to good show?
I thought the show was okay. If it would have been Raw, it would have been a really strong Raw. But, the effort was there. I mean, you had 2 really good matches with Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, and the Tag Team Turmoil match. The main event was okay. It was good for what it was. Triple H Kane was better than I thought, but the rest of the show was, it didn't suck, but it wasn't great. It's okay.
Yeah, a lot of the undercard matches were more or less throwaways. I mean, like Big Show, Test, and Rhino for the hardcore title. To me, that was a match that was supposed to be the Big Show and Test in a one-on-one match, and they just kind of threw Rhino in because he's right now, as far as the mid-carders go, is probably one of the hotter wrestlers. So
Yeah.
I think they just kind of threw him in there to spice up the match a little bit. Good luck with the Big Show, but I mean, Rhino did the best he could with the gore and with the garbage can and everything. But of course, Show got his retribution on Raw with the worthless win. I'm done.
No, it just seems like an impressive, on paper at least, so they say, an impressive win for Rhino. With the
Yeah.
Spirit on the Big Show. I mean, Big Show still has a little bit of reputation left.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think any of it hurt. I mean, I think you can either keep Rhino where he's at right now in the hardcore division. You can always have him win the belt back, or you can move him on. I mean, Matt Hardy is the champ, is the European champ, and there is sort of a little bit of a history there with Edge and Christian and the Hardy Boys, whatever. So it doesn't matter. And I mean, the thing with Big Show, you're paying a guy $1 million a year. You got to do something with him. It's only the hardcore title. At least it's not the light heavyweight title or the women's title.
What do you guys think about it? I'm sorry, Tom.
I was going to say what you will about one of the matches, about the undercard being possibly throwing away, about Regal Rikishi. The facial expressions in this match after the stink face from Regal, I think it saved the match. I mean, granted Rikishi's hurt, but above average pay-per-view. I give it a C+.
That's what I gave it a C++ on the website, just because I didn't feel quite right giving it a B.
No, I don't think it deserved more than above average.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a strong C, But the other thing, just going back to what you said about Regal, we were all sitting around the living room trying to figure out whether or not Regal got cut on the stink face or the savant kick. Because we were thinking, but that's the first person ever to show color after a stink face, which would have been hilarious, but I don't think that's what it called.
I think I blinked and missed it all. I just saw Regal's forehead. He came up, blood gushing everywhere, which if you're Wade Keller from ProWrestlingTorch.com, you would say that obviously because Regal bled in the first match, it took away from the chain match and the main event because both Undertaker and Triple H bled. It did take away. The blood wasn't as meaningful in the main event because Regal bled her in the first match.
I don't think Regal meant to bleed, though.
I was being facetious.
Although I know you were. But
I realize that.
I was just trying to point out to the people who may be confused.
Are you sure he didn't bleed from the chest? Did he take any chops and just start bleeding?
Well, unlike when Gorilla Monsoon ripped Vader's nipple off with that devastating chop the day after the Rumble in '96. No, I believe this was hard way. So,
yeah, I think he started bleeding after who the hell was the wrestler? Rikishi smashed him into the steel steps.
Fat Samoan guy, okay.
Well, to go back on what Tom said about the match.
did you say bad Samoan guy? Bad would have been cooler.
Well, either way.
What did you honestly expect from this match? I mean, with Rikishi being injured, like Tom said, and he's not that great of a worker to begin with, but it wasn't bad. It was an opening match. What do you want for $35?
And Regal's facial expressions did save whatever it was. After the stink face, I mean, that look on his face was just priceless. There's nobody in that who can do what he does as far as his character goes.
Except maybe Jim Ross, but
Right. But yeah, you give Regal the win. I mean, why put Rikishi over? That gimmick is pretty old.
One of the points we can bring up now with Triple H being injured is who do you kind of move into to feud with Kane? One of the guys I had thought of, seeing as how he's no longer hardcore champion, was not Chuck Palumbo, but I was thinking more along the lines of Rhino for that spot.
Yeah, I don't know.
For Triple H's spot?
I don't want to say a spot. I mean, to feud with Kane for the Intercontinental title for Kane to elevate
too much
somebody.
too fast. I mean, I'll take back a lot of what I said about Rhino on the show. He's showed a lot more promise than I ever expected him to, but no.
Yeah, I'm
don't
going to
feel
agree.
it.
I don't think he's ready. He's too green. Even Jim Ross, in his update to his Ross report, admitted how green Rhino is. He needs more time working what he's doing right now, I think, before he moves him to Kane.
Speaking of people possibly to elevate, Rikishi's heel run, can we say that it's just completely dead and buried and he's back to square one dancing Rikishi now that he has turned face? I don't know if it was his eardrum, basically that did him in, or what the heck it was, or who he ticked off proverbially. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm half asleep. But I just don't understand how you go from being the guy who hit Steve Austin to the guy who's dancing with Brian Christopher again.
Well, we shouldn't really say that because he actually hasn't danced with Brian Christopher yet.
Not per se.
But he's not back to square one in the
Still a
sense
jackass, though, with Christopher. Anybody that associates with Brian Christopher is.
Right, but I mean, I don't think it's back to square one where he puts the glasses on and does the dancing. Granted, it is a step backwards from him coming from being a heel.
It's more than a step backwards. I mean, they
it's a
completely
giant
killed
leap
him.
backwards, but I don't think you can say he's back to square one.
Well,
It's
it's not-
maybe square 1A or
It's
something
a
like
big
that.
fat Samoan step backward.
The thing about Rikishi is I think they kind of killed his momentum right from the start. I mean, when the match he came back on Raw and fought Austin, I thought he had a better showing against Austin. That match, was it a moth or something? I thought he had a better showing against Austin that match on Raw than he did as a heel against Austin. I thought Austin rolled over him in that feud.
Yeah, he did.
Jim and Steve Austin.
Well, I know it's face Steve Austin. I'm sorry. What was I thinking? I'm sorry.
It's all right.
But that was sort of more of the, that was sort of the beginning of their inconsistent booking phase, which they're not totally out of. That,
Is that when they had, during their booking meetings before Raw, they had that little conference thing in the middle, and Vince Russo would be giving out, instructions on what to do?
Yeah, that was that they used to pick the angles out of a fishbowl. So, I mean, really, Rikishi could have just been a victim of that, where they just weren't being consistent enough with their storytelling and didn't really get the true run he deserved as a heel. He at least he deserved a chance, and he really didn't get it, but oh well. We are going to come back. There's more on Judgment Day to talk about. We're still going to get into the Benoit Angle match as well as the main event, and we will do that next.
WCW monthly magazine currently not available. So
Well, actually,
whoever,
you can send subscription to us, and we'll send you out the magazine.
Yeah.
oh, yeah, but if you
send
send them
you
into
ours.
WCW, they won't send you anything back. So I heavily advise against it. So whoever reads the questions, let's read them from
All right.
last week.
We have a winner this week. His name is Mike Garlow. He had all 4 questions right. Number 1. What was the tag team match at WrestleMania 5? It was Demolition versus the Powers of Pain with Mr. Fuji, who actually wrestled. The finals of the 99 King of the Ring, which I've totally blocked out. X-Pac against Billy Gunn. And, of course, he puts They Both Suck Now.
That was actually the only good night of Billy Gunn's career.
That would be a bonus point, I believe.
Yeah, we'll send them something.
Yeah.
Anyway, what was the opening match of the 1999? Did I say that right? Yeah. Okay. Over the Edge pay-per-view, which we talked about last week, it was X-Pac Kane versus Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown. Currently can be seen on NWA East or something like that. I'm sorry, that slipped. Kurt Angle's debut match was at the '99 Survivor Series against Meat, aka Sean Stasiak. And real quick, we got an email from Glenn. If you can see how big this lettering is, if you can't, then too bad. But Glenn, you put your name, your address, but what city do you live in, buddy? You can't send the pizza nowhere.
Oh well, Glenn. Nice try anyway. But for your effort, what is his name? Damn it. Mike, I'm sorry. For
Glenn.
Well, not that. He didn't win.
Okay.
For your effort, Mike, you win from Original Pizza Works a coupon or a voucher or whatever for 1 large pie, an order of chicken wings, and a 2-liter bottle of carbonated beverages. You can redeem this at any of the Pizza Works outlets at Javosburg, Jefferson Hills, or Finleyville. And do it now. Do it soon. Or do it when you get the coupon. Just go.
Go to the pizza place, then wait for the coupon to come to your house, and go back and get it.
That's what you should do.
To enter this week, it's www.prowrestlingreview.com. Click on trivia, answer those questions, and this one. In his pay-per-view debut at Starrcade in 1994, who did Alex Wright defeat? Once again, in his pay-per-view debut at Starrcade in 1994, who did Alex Wright defeat? You got to answer that. Answer through on the website. Name, address, city, and
Or borough.
or borough
Or township.
or town or I don't know,
Or P.O. box.
I don't know. Tom, take us the hell out
Or
of
some
here.
landmarks, maybe.
And just keep in mind, once again, these are collector's items.
Yeah, all three are out of work.
Yeah, so is the magazine, though. But anyway, ProWrestlingReview.com, answer those three, the one Jim just read, and happy answering, and don't forget about the magazine.
I'm sorry, I'm in
Thank
the wrong
you.
place.
Well, we'd like to talk a little bit more about Judgment Day, which I think we did an adequate job last segment, but we're still going to talk about it. What else is there to talk about on Judgment
We
Day?
have nothing else, and we're just going to beat Judgment Day into the ground. So
Unfortunately, like the WWF did, just beat it right into the ground. Anyway, we didn't talk about the main event yet, did we?
Yes,
main
we
event yet? We did?
I
Yeah,
don't know.
Did we talk about the chain match yet?
not really.
sort of.
Can we talk about that then?
Well, there was a women's title
Sure,
match. I don't
sure
want to
show,
gloss over
Tom.
that.
No, talk about what you want.
I'd like to talk about these empty Pepsi bottles.
Well,
Pepsi
you know,
bottles
why don't
behind
we
this.
talk about the women's title match? Why don't we get this hell out of the way?
Okay.
Because I'm sure everybody's expecting me to just burn it, but I don't think it sucked. I don't think it was good, but seriously, I don't think it sucked. Here's my problem: who the hell dressed China? Where did they find that thing? Did you see that? You know what it reminded me of? If anybody ever saw the movie Coming to America, at the beginning of the movie, there's this big thing where all the natives are dancing and they have these crazy little native costumes on. It looks like peacock feathers. I mean,
Did you like Jim Ross say, she looks proud as a peacock?
Well, if you're in, well, not the word I want to say, but if you're one of the internet people that post websites or boards every day, whatever the hell you could say, holy hell, was that just bad? Anyway, the gist of what I was just trying to say through an interpreter was, you see, my earpiece is failing right now. China was wearing the peacock is a slap in the face at NBC because of the XFL. These are people that say Yoko's coming back next week, Jake Roberts just gave birth, New Jack is dead. People along these lines on the internet, so don't believe them, kids, when you read that. But that was ridiculous,
I hate to try
Brian.
and follow that point out, but here's my problem.
Which one, the first one or the second one where I completely spit on myself?
Here's my problem with the whole thing. What's left to do with China?
Killer.
And I was waiting to see. What happened on Raw because I figured the China leader thing wasn't going to be over. It appears to be so. What the hell else are they going to do with her now?
Here's another thing. Yeah, I
She'll
agree
feud
with
with
you.
Kane. Who knows?
We can only hope.
Someone's got to stop telling Lita to quit being so freaking happy. Like the match is over and China's raising her hand. I never like she won the lotto.
Well, normally if someone power bombs you, you usually jump up and shake their hand and say thanks, and
And
you'll see you
The
later.
normal response.
Yeah, that's the
Big
normal thing. to do.
grin. It's like, what the hell? It's like Sable both injecting him with the smile all the time serum. No matter what's happening, smile.
I'd smile all the time too. I was married to Mark Marrow. Can we agree that Lita's here we go. Can we agree that Lita's punches are probably the worst in wrestling, male or female? Yes, Tom, we can. No one else is answering. Well, what do you think, Tom? Well, basically, the punches are bad. She shows so much light when she's. I agree too. Yeah, thank you.
I think we have to say.
What'd I say?
Because I don't think anything's going to top that.
All right. Oh, jeez.
The Mark Marrow thing.
Well, Benoit and Angle had a killer match at the pay-per-view.
As he wipes away the
It
tears.
was a 3-fall match. The first one was by pinfall only. And, it ended quick. Yeah, it was a 3-fall match.
And it was good.
Yeah, China and Lita were both in the audience taking notes. Yeah, the first match ended quick. It was like a minute in with an Olympic slam. Olympic slam. And I'm sure we all sensed it.
Snake. Jake. I'm sorry.
Someone keep going. I'm sure everybody sensed that, that Kurt Angle was going to win fall 2 with the crossface, and, luckily they didn't do that.
Let me just put all the rumors to rest. If Mark Marrow wore the peacock, because we're all thinking about it.
What do you think Mark Marrow's doing now with it?
Well, I don't know
Seriously.
if hanging yourself in a closet is a viable option. Maybe working at Rite Aid. You know how they switch Rite Aid over from Eckerd or Rite Aid to Eckerd, or
That was
vice
part of his
versa.
WWF contract.
It's a shame too. He had a very promising career in the WWF. What happened?
He's booking his wife on
Yeah.
shows like The Huntress on USA.
Yeah. His wife reminded him who the real star was.
Who, their kid?
Anyway.
Hey, Kane won the belt. How about that?
Yeah, nice little chain match.
There's nothing left. Can we end this segment?
Well, the tag team turmoil match, actually that was a pretty good match. It went about 20, 25 minutes. And, they did one of these matches before, and they sort of just did it in blow-off style, where, like, each match, we should probably set up the rules. Wow, convoluted. It started off with 2 tag teams, and then once one team won, another team would come in, and it kind of went in gauntlet style until there was one team left. But they actually did a nice job. They gave each match, each portion of the match, that's kind of tough to describe, a few minutes to develop before they
it
sort
seemed
of
like
went to a finish.
every match in the, I guess, I don't want to call it a tournament, but it seemed like every match in the turmoil had a purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, the Acolytes did fairly well. X
Yes.
Factor did fairly well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they won twice or just once.
Yeah, they won
but,
twice.
Okay. But it was one of those things, too, and I was actually excited to see the fact that Benoit was excited when they won the match. I mean,
Yeah.
he seemed genuinely excited about it, and same goes for Jericho. I mean, but anytime Benoit gets on the second rope to celebrate with the fans, it's a big deal. So.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you,
That's-
Good to see he's
that's
playing up the
right.
crowd more, too, by the way.
much like the people on the internet, I wanted it to be Scott Hall, and it wasn't because everybody said it was going to be Scott Hall, and it wasn't. But like you said about the tag team, what the hell was the match called?
Turmoil.
Turmoil. I was going to call it Armageddon match. It kind of makes you long for the days of the Body Donnas versus the New Godwins versus the New Rockers, where they're 4 ways or 5 ways or 12 ways, whatever they were. The action in the ring was maybe about 2 minutes at best, and the team got eliminated.
Yeah.
So how far they have come in such a long time.
Yeah, and actually the other thing too that was nice was I thought it was odd whenever Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit went out second on the pay-per-view. But I guess that was by design because they ended up giving them close to a half an hour to do their match, which they were going to need because with the tag team turmoil match going long, they needed at least to put that early in the show. So if something else needed cut, and that's something they wouldn't have done in the past. So that was kind of nice to see.
Yeah, let's get rid of that chain match.
Yeah,
And hey, I was happy Jerry Lynn was on the pay-per-view. Sure, he wasn't wrestling, he was eating, but it counts anyway.
and he was trying out for Napalm Death.
Hey, the heavy metal promos are cool. If Mark Marrow tried those, he may still be in wrestling today, buddy, bucko.
Yeah, if he would have posed for Penthouse, he'd be wrestling.
Leather chaps, something to that effect.
Oh boy, let's not even get into disable because this could get ugly.
All right, so let's not.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit about the WCW Invasion angle. So
Hot news.
please stay with us.
WCW finally getting off. I just called it the WCW, and I hate when people do that. WCW is finally getting off the ground, and WWF kind of started it off with this issue of WWF Magazine with "War" on the cover. Vince, and if you can see his eyeballs, you can see Shane McMahon and his pupils. How creative. So
I like the back of it anyway. See this?
Brian Greasy.
That guy has one
Yeah.
he has one eyebrow,
Don't mess
elbow,
with the dude.
whatever.
Yeah, he's got $42 million in his bank account. So
Sports gel.
Don't mess
That's,
with him.
that's neat.
yeah. There's kind of some late breaking news in a sense coming up that the July WWF pay-per-view, which is typically called Fully Loaded, is now going to be called Invasion. And there's a poster for the show circulating the internet right now that has sort of half of Vince McMahon's face, half of Shane McMahon's face. And the word now is that despite what they had originally planned, they are going to do some inter-promotional matches on this pay-per-view, the extent of which isn't quite known yet. But the angle could start as early. Actually, it sort of started this past Monday with the Kurt Angle Shane McMahon thing. But the WCW interaction could begin as early as this Monday on Raw. So looks like the WCW rebirth is finally starting to take form.
Yeah, but is this an attempt by the WWF to kind of gain some more interest by the fans in the product? And
Oh, absolutely.
are they? Well, okay, but then why would you go into it just by starting this up and having, if you're going to have guys show up before the July pay-per-view? Why would you want to do this before your actual WCW show gets off the ground?
Well, I think that's why, because I'm, at least from what they're saying with the negotiations with TNN, the show may not even be on yet. Come June 3rd. I guess they were saying June 13th was going to be the launch date, but there's nothing set in stone, and that's 2 weeks away. So my thinking is maybe the date was set back, and this is a way to keep the WCW guys fresh in everybody's mind, so that when the TV show does start up, there's already an audience built up.
I guess it's kind of a way to appease the fans who want this interpromotional atmosphere, and also give them more time. Have WCW guys be on WWF TV, and then behind the scenes keep working on trying to get a WCW TV show.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, the WWF's at a disadvantage with this thing. I mean, the WCW brand name is as scarred as, not going to go there, but, it's not in very good shape, and people don't feel very good about the name WCW, so WWF needs to kind of jump out of the gates quickly with this thing and make it as good as they can and make it as interesting as they can so people actually tune in for the show. And it's going to be a late time slot anyway, so you're going to need to build an audience.
It's just going to be interesting to see if they, hopefully, like I said, I've always been a fan of the fact, well, they keep it two separate promotions, but you're absolutely right. They have to get the WCW guys on WWF television pay-per-view. Because, basically...
So you don't think this is a bad idea?
It depends on where they go with it. If they go with it into the WCW TV show and keeping WCW separate, I think it's a good idea. If they go into this saying, okay, this is the first time I'm making this one gigantic promotion, no, I don't like it.
Well, here's another question. Who's basically the face and the heel in all this, if I can use those two terms? I realize tweener's one of the choices too. Is WCW with Shane McMahon the face? I can't see Vince McMahon being the face in this whole thing, but then if you have interpromotional matches, do you have heels in the WWF versus faces in WCW? I mean, it's a little window dressing, but it's important to a guy like me.
Yeah, it's sort of like fine-tuning the story, like thinking of stuff like that, but I think that's the direction we're going. Well, who has Shane McMahon in the past couple of weeks got involved with? Kurt Angle, Big Show, both which are heels right now.
Yeah, but I think the point that he's trying to make is when you do have a WCW television show, and say you have a Booker T versus a Diamond Dallas Page, and DDP on WCW TV is a heel, but when he goes and crosses over to wrestle in the WWF, is he going to be a face? Because Shane McMahon's group is the actual face group.
Well, they're going to have to be careful with that. That's something that they're going to have to plan very carefully because...
it could get confusing.
Yeah, I feel bad saying this. I don't mean this as an insult to the people at home, but a lot of wrestling fans aren't smart enough to keep up with something like that. I mean, that's just the truth. If you look at a study, the wrestling draws some of the lowest demographics in the world. I'm sorry it is, but I think that's too complicated for people to keep up with. I don't think a lot of people can separate, because there's so many people who think this stuff's real anyway. I don't think people will be able to keep that separate, that, Dallas Page is a heel here, but he's a face here. What does this make sense? And where a lot of people watch our show can catch on,
Aha.
Yeah,
That was subtle.
Nice save, by the way.
Hey.
Nice save.
Well said.
I don't think I have a problem. You bring up the Booker T example. I think in this case he'll be a face in either position, and if
Yeah, but
You're obviously going to have exceptions. Heels, flat out heels, flat out
let's
good
face
guys.
it, I mean, if it's leading into the WCW TV show, you can't have Dallas Page come on, fight Kurt Angle, and then have him go onto the WCW television show and attack Booker T. That's stupid.
Granted, but the WWF has done a lot of stupid things in the past. Big Show's father dying, jumping on the casket, Big Boss Man pulling the casket.
Big Boss Man wrestling.
That was compelling television, needless to say. But I mean, there are a lot of stupid things that they do, and hopefully they can stay clear of this. Or, who knows, maybe we may see the black and white traditional heel and faces return. I doubt that severely.
Well, I think you're kind of seeing it now, to some degree.
Well, I think the other thing you got to think of, too, is with this whole Invasion pay-per-view, I don't think the whole show from top to bottom is going to be in promotional matches. I think you're going to get maybe one or two. So if they keep it to a minimum, maybe you can avoid that problem of, is this guy face, is this guy heel? Because that way maybe you can just use Kurt Angle against Booker T or something like that.
Well, I think that's the way it's going to go. I mean, obviously, right now, Big Show never has anything to do. If Kurt Angle's out of a story at that point, which is certainly a possibility. Well, yeah, I know it's a long way away still, but...
I may be really being trivial with this, but say you have a Booker T, a flat-out good guy, versus one of WWF's bad guys. Give me a heel in the Big Show.
Taz.
Booker T defeats... You ruined it. Booker T defeats Big Show. Then does that mean I'm really getting trivialized here. But because WCW won, they got the better of the WWF. That means Steve Austin's title, whoever has the world title, is meaningless. Therefore,
I think you're reading way too
Ron
much
Bartlett
into it.
comes in. I'm getting very.
I think it's good business. You got to.
But some people think like that.
You got to do two things at WCW. When you bring these guys onto WWF television, you got to put them over strong, regardless of wins or losses. But you also, as much as WCW is going to be the minor leagues, you can't treat it like it.
I don't think it's going to be the minor leagues. That's the
Billy
point.
Gunn will be there. It's not minor league.
That's perception you got to stay away from. Is what I'm saying now.
See, I think that's the point where if a Booker T does beat a Kurt Angle or a Big Show or something like that, and people think that maybe Steve Austin's equal. Good. Hopefully people do think that, because then they'll watch the show, because they'll think that these guys are just as good as the WWF guys, and if they can beat them, let's watch the show.
Well, like you said, if a Booker T does beat a Kurt Angle, hopefully he goes back to WCW and has actually a heel to face that's worthwhile. I don't think Kwee cuts it. So, I mean, hopefully the talent in WCW will be plentiful, and I hope they do retain a lot of the big names that still haven't been signed yet, say a Scott Steiner, which I'm really not sure of, or even a Ric Flair.
Well, this may sound stupid to point out, but a lot of fans have to remember, too, that WCW and WWF are both owned by the same person. So,
Exactly.
No, they're not.
yeah, well,
Shane owns it, buddy.
you can't have one of those things where fans debate on the internet about why WCW is better than WWF. You just remember that they're all in this together.
You're right.
That's important. It sounds, it sounds stupid, but it's the truth.
You're supposed to remember that, but then you're supposed to forget about it when you're considering the two companies that they're equal, or that they're separate companies, but they're still owned. I mean, it's just it's convoluted.
Exactly.
It's reality. Oh my gosh, we're black and white. We better go. We're going to come back. We're going to do our world-class famous rants next.
Years ago, I thought this guy, you're not going anywhere, man. 2 years ago, I thought this guy just had a world of potential, and I guess a little over a year ago now, coming into WWF, I thought behind Chris Benoit, this was the guy. What happened? I mean, you can't explain what happened. I think the guy's pretty well talented in the ring. I think he's got some nice aerial moves, decent personality. I think the problem, I don't know if this is a real big problem, but I think for the past year, the WWF creative team just didn't know what to do with them. And I'm not saying to be insultive, like they misused them. Sometimes it just doesn't fit for whatever reason. But for whatever reason, Perry Saturn's tenure so far in the WWF has been woefully disappointing to me, and you saw it come to a head this past Monday night. But also this past Monday night, it seems like with everything that happened, maybe they're ready to make a fresh start with him, maybe get another push involved. Maybe with Paul Heyman on the booking committee, maybe he knows what to do with him better, and maybe down the line, Perry Saturn can feel that potential that I saw in him 2 years ago.
They can always dig up John Cronus,
Yeah.
find him somewhere. Okay, well, here we go. Well, if you're like me and you care what day it is, you probably have one of the WWF desktop calendars. This is just a little sample of what it looks like. But anyway, I was just appalled when I read the message for Sunday, May 20th, the day of Judgment Day. This is actually, the calendar's done by Kevin Kelly. He writes all this stuff, and you'll see why in a minute. At the 1991 Royal Rumble, Hulk Hogan somehow found a way to topple the 575-pound Earthquake. Okay, not too bad, 575 pounds, but I don't think he was that fat. Here's where we get into a little bit of a miscarriage of justice, as the late Gorilla Monsoon would say. With the victory in the Rumble, Hogan earned the right to meet Federation Champion Sid, insert joke here, at WrestleMania 8 the next March, whatever that means. Hogan failed to win the title, however, as he only earned a disqualification victory over Justice at the Hoosier Dome on April 5th, 1992. Okay, let's go back and review. The Royal Rumble 91, Hogan wins. Fine. That upcoming WrestleMania, which he would have gotten the title shot, was WrestleMania 7. So then they go ahead and say that Hogan earned the title shot for the next year's WrestleMania in March, and then they list the date as April 5th, 1992. And the biggest joke of them all is the fact that they refer to Sid Vicious as Federation Champion at the time. The actual WrestleMania 8 title match was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. Thank you very much, Kevin Kelly. You've proved my point that you're an ass. Thank you.
I should say, Jim, if you listen to the wrestling album too, if you play it backwards, it says Perry Saturn is dead.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Is that right after the Ass and Smash song?
Yes.
Okay,
good. As we mentioned earlier, The Undertaker's kind of been, through really no fault of his own, bumped down out of the main event picture. He was supposed to fight Steve Austin at King of the Ring for the WWF title, and won't be doing that now because Chris Jericho will be doing it. I gotta say, I think this is a good move. I think the WWF made the right call here, and this is what they have to do. But I do feel bad for The Undertaker. He didn't do anything wrong. He worked hard at Judgment Day. For a guy who's 39 years old, who's basically over on his reputation, he really doesn't have to go out and work hard, but he does. He does give an effort, every time he's out there. It doesn't always translate, but he does always go out and try hard. And, a lot of people say that The Undertaker's a very good influence in the back. He's kind of a guy that the young guys feel they can go to and confide in and things like that. And that's great. You need a guy like that around. Not somebody like a Kevin Nash who's going to stab him in the back or, fake a heart attack if he has to fight them. So just say, if there's any way to keep Undertaker, around and maybe keep him in a semi-important story, hopefully the WWF can find a way to do that. And when this guy finally is ready to retire, hopefully they can find a fitting way to send him off.
Well, I'd like to expand on what you said, Rennie, about Kevin Kelly, and this is geared towards Kevin Kelly, Michael Cole, and the coach. 3 of the most worthless commentators, announcers, backstage announcers you'll ever see. My question to the WWF is, where did you find these guys and why did you hire them? Does the coach serve any purpose whatsoever? Not really that I can see. I'm sure he can run. As they went to a point the last show in Pittsburgh, I believe the ring announcer and the coach had a bet to see who could lose 20 pounds or who could run a mile. And so far, that was the only thing I've ever seen the coach do. I think he spoke maybe 3 words. I lost. Well, that's 2. Kevin Kelly, like Rennie said, writes the calendar. That's all. That's his pretty much only job. That and buying new belts when his pants blow out at the seams. And then you have Michael Cole, who I'll give him a little bit of credit. He has gotten a tad better in recent months, but he is still awful. And this is my plea to the WWF. When trying to find announcers, backstage people, even just talent in general for WCW, please be a little more selective this time. You know, people that can actually read and have passed 4th grade and have taken the GED and the SAT and the CAT, whatever. And also, this is just a little sidebar here to just clarify. I think we brought it up a little earlier in the show about Jerry Lynn's promo from Judgment Day. Yeah, it was a little heavy metal-ish, but it was still good. And he's at least talking, which most of the guys he has in the WWF aren't doing. So to all the internet people out there, it was horrible. At least he has the mic. At least he's talking. Maybe he'll get the wrestle. I don't know. At least he'll get to eat at WWF New York, which I haven't yet. Godspeed.
Yes.
Ready.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Cue card, please. If you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can read it on the web. It's www.triblive.com/sports. Also, the radio show, it's every Monday at 5 o'clock. It's ESPN affiliate out of Wheeling, West Virginia, the Ryan Patrick Show, 1370 AM. Done.
Over. My column is called Sharpshooter. It is out on newsstands today. It is in the Daily News. Or you can check it out on the internet at www.dailynewsbekeysport.com. And this week I have a look at Mick Foley, who is once again the New York Times bestseller. He is whatever. Just read the damn story. Jim.
If you want to enter the trivia contest, it's prowrestlingreview.com. Click on trivia. Answer those 3 questions. Here's your question again. In his pay-per-view debut at Starrcade 94, who did Alex Wright defeat? Answer that. Answer those 3. You know the rest.
Jim, are you afraid of criticism?
Well, yes, I am.
You're afraid.
I have a fragile
Brian,
ego and reputation.
You're afraid.
Let's not air dirty laundry here.
Fragile ego. I'm sorry, Tom.
And once again, the website is www.prowrestlingreview.com. And can I spill the little news about next week, or should I save that?
We got good stuff next week.
Possibly next week, actually. Oh, affirmative. Okay. Next week on Pro Wrestling Review, I already got the message, Jim.
You got the memo?
We will have in-depth and exclusive interview with a backyard wrestler. So don't know how well that's going to go, but tune in. And I believe the main message.
There's a deal in the works.
Well, there's a deal in the works. I believe there's a happy meal or 2 that it needs to be worked out in the process. But tune in next.
Dreamer.
Yeah, and we should point out, this is going to be, just so that all the kids at home don't start mailing in, this is our 1-week reprieve. Backyard.
We lost a bet, actually. It was a baseball game
know,
a few weeks back, so we have to do
Damn.
this. We're contractually obligated, I believe. Not that we have contracts, but tune in next week for that interview. And once again, for myself, for this week, for myself, for Brian, for Rennie, and for Jim, this is the Pro Wrestling Review. And next week, we promise something a little different, so tune in. Thank you.